which came easily. The year is now 1912, the year the Titanic sunk. The place is Hewitt, the month is January, and the day the 21st. The day that Ruth Irene Lewis came into this world, the daughter of Grace Lewis and John Meek. When Granddad Lewis learned of his daughter's pregnancy, he became so enraged he ran John Meek off, threatening bodily harm, so that if John and Grace had wanted to marry, it was now impossible. Granddad Lewis was a hard man, and suggested to Dr. W.W. Will that he would kill Ruth, or he should kill Ruth at the time of her birth, as he didn't want a scandal. Of course, Dr. Will would have nothing to do with this plan and suggested to Granddad Lewis that the law might be interested in this suggestion. When Ruth was about 2, her mother moved to North Dakota where she filed a claim. Big thing with our family. Okay. It was there that her half-brother Howard Powell was born. After approximately 2 years, the family moved to Virginia, Minnesota. Ruth's mother was in frail health due to dropsy, a condition we know now as congestive heart failure. Because she knew she would not live to rear her children, she put them up for adoption. Randall and Mary McAllister of Oak Valley Township, the vicinity of Lyman Store and Union Corners Church, adopted her, and a couple took Howard. It was later learned that he was taken to Sweden. When Ruth became McAllister's daughter, she also became a neighbor of Harold. Harold had sisters the ages of Ruth, Vidi in particular, that became Ruth's dear friend. The time passed, and the year is now 1930. And what a momentous year. Financial gloom resulting from the stock market crash of the preceding year kept spreading, and apple vendors appeared on the street corners of New York and elsewhere. These were the events that were shaping America. But in Oak Valley Township, vicinity of Union Corners Church, the attraction of Harold and Ruth to each other began to shape their lives. Perhaps it was Harold's handsome face and fine physique that attracted Ruth, or was it Ruth's long dark hair and rosy cheeks that attracted Harold? Whatever it was, Harold proposed marriage, and on December 23, 1930, with Edna Witthuhn and Ronald Meredith as attendants, they became man and wife. These were the Depression years, and life was not to come easily. With only a cow and very little else, Harold became a farmer. The year is now 1931, and in the month of September, Harold and Ruth became the parents for the first time with the birth of Laverne Joy. Laverne was quite the little mother. She put to bed so many dolls, there wasn't room for her in the bed. With another mouth to feed, it wasn't any easier to make ends meet, but Harold and Ruth just worked that much harder. Harold was working one fine day in the field across the road on the Meredith place, now the Gary Collins place, when he heard Ruth yell, as she had never yelled before, that the house was on fire. Of course, by the time that help came, it was too late. The house burned down despite the efforts of the neighbors who had come to help. Very few items were saved. Housekeeping had never been easy, but now it was worth trying to make a home out of a shed where they would live for the next few months. A shed. In July the same year, their first son, James Edwin, was born in the home of Harold's parents, since the little family was still living in the shed. The struggle to keep body and soul together continues as the economy bottoms out for farmers. But the new house is built, and in October of 1934, Ruth gives birth to their second son, Robin Dean. The year is 1936. We were talking about temperatures. 1936, where the record for temperatures, both high and low, occurs. The record of 114 degrees in July and a low of 55 below in January caused 679 fatalities and changed the record books.
Wow.
It is now February 1937, a snowy month, and Harold follows a snowplow to Bertha as Ruth is about to deliver her fourth child, the Irish Joe, the first child to be born in a hospital. During the summer of 1938, Harold enlists the aid of friends, family, and neighbors, and a new barn is built. The year is 1939, and in February, Theodore Lee, their third son, is born. With 5 children to raise, life is not getting any easier. At this time, the Europeans began buying imports from us in anticipation of war, so the economy began an upswing. But even though the times were not so hard, life was. There were cows to milk, and corn to plant, and hay to make, and grain to thresh, and pigs to slop, and garden to weed, and tomatoes to can, and clothes to make, and bread to bake, and it never ended. And wood to chop. The year is now 1940, and the month August. What a commotion. Seems as though all the neighborhood is visiting the witthuhn home. What has happened is that a pair of twin girls has arrived on the scene. One baby is a baby, but two babies are twins. And twins were a novelty, so it seemed. People came and went and came to see the twins. Ruth named them Mavis Annette and Marlis Burnell. The middle initial for future reference who was born first. If life was hard before, it was getting any easier. It was getting harder and harder every year, folks. And with double the diapers, formula, setting up nights, or comforting one or the other babies, plus Iris or Teddy stealing the bottles, and Ruth never knowing for sure if the twins finished their bottles or if the big babies did it for them. And then it was December 7th, 1941. When the Japanese dealt us that infamous blow by bombing Pearl Harbor. Harold was too old with too many kids to be eligible for the draft, but many of the younger men went to war. The economy even got better, as it always done during war years, at least it did back then, but it seemed it was just as hard to make a living with rationing, and many times no goods were available unless you wanted to deal in the black market. What a time Ruth had washing clothes with a gas-powered washing machine and elbow-powered wringer. Now remember, she had, 5 kids? 7 kids. 7 now. Harold tried to buy a new washing machine, but there was none available, as items of this nature were not being manufactured. All energy and materials were directed to the manufacture of airplanes, tanks, ships, and so on. In September 1942, a son, Randall Roy, is born. Even at an early age, Randy could tell tall stories, so tall that everyone thought he just had to be related to Paul Bunyan. We've come to the year 1943, a year to be draped in black. The Buchanan children all have the measles. Ruth stops in to see Clara about something with instructions to her children to stay in the car so not to get exposed. Well, it's during this visit that the Buchanan barn catches on fire and burns down. Of course, during this commotion, the children do not stay in the car. And after the time of incubation, the witthuhn children all have the measles. Teddy complains of pain in his abdomen and is very ill, so Ruth takes him to the doctor where he is diagnosed as having an appendix attack. The doctor recommends ice packs on his appendix, so ice is bought, as there is no refrigeration in the witthuhn house. This procedure does not help, so Ruth takes Teddy to the hospital. The doctor does not want to operate because he feels the anesthetic will cause pneumonia. The doctor is hoping the attack will subside, but it worsens and the appendix ruptures. Teddy died October 1st. It still bothers me. 1943. At the age of 4.5 years. Can you imagine? These little guys. Even though the shrieks of laughter and tears could still be heard in the witthuhn house, everyone missed the quiet, shy little boy, and he's never been forgotten. The years passed in 1945, and Ruth decides a family picture should be taken. She busies herself at the sewing machine making outfits for her children, and the picture was duly taken. What an event it was, getting everyone dressed and posed and deciding which proof is the one that will be recorded for posterity. After all, Randy was 3 years old, and Shirley, he's 3 years old, she's not pregnant. Surely he will remain the baby of the family. So this picture was taken as an important record of the witthuhn family. The war has just ended this year, and with at the end of it, there were more